Hello there everybody and welcome back to the incredible mess that is my workshop. So I'm going to show you today how I go about making the tuning pegs that I make for the instruments that I build. This is the last one I've built, as I said in the last video. It's walnut body, alder soundboard, and then it's got walnut tailpiece bridge and oak pegs, because walnut's a bit too soft really to use as tuning pegs. But it's got an oak tail pin down here, that's why I used oak for the tuning pegs. Kind of matches up then, however, as I said in the previous video, two of these tuning pegs are compressed to the point where the head of the pegs is butting up against the back of the head of the instrument, and I can't actually push them in properly now. You drill holes in the head, then you ream them to a taper with this, a tapered reamer, and you use one of these that comes in the set. These come in a set together. This is a tapering block, which you use for tapering your tuning pegs. They're violin making tools and they work brilliantly. What I'm going to do is actually replace the tuning pegs, and I'm going to replace the bridge and the tailpiece so that they're all one species, because I quite like doing that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you one tuning peg and how to do it. I'm not going to show you all 6 tuning pegs because you only really need to see one. You just repeat the process, of course. Now there are specialist tools you're going to need for this. You need to have your tapered reamer and your tapering block. These come in a set. Also, you are going to need a pillar drill and one of these. This is an 8mm plug cutter or dowel cutter. It's quite a long one. You need the shank of the tuning peg to be fairly long so that it can go all the way through the head, have some at the back and have some sticking out as well for the string to wind up on. Right, let's get cracking. So this lovely rippled ash you see before you, and you can see the sort of lines going perpendicular to the grain. That's a ripple effect. It's where the grain is doing this. This is from like the base of the tree, and it's been sort of in the wind. It's had to create this ripple to create strength, and that's what's caused that. This ash, I think I measured it while I was there at 13mm. It's not. It's 11.5, 12mm. Yeah, it's 12. So that's 12mm thick. So what I'm going to want to do is actually have my pegs fairly square. So I'm going to go for 12mm here, mark all the way down. I could use a marking gauge for this. I do have several marking gauges, but I just find it easier to use a sliding square. Then you want 24, that's 36. Oh, another thing to note, you have to have quarter sawn wood for this. You cannot use rift sawn or through sawn wood for tuning pegs. They will just turn themselves apart. You need to have quarter sawn. What quarter sawn of course means that the growth rings are going perpendicular to the faces. That's quarter sawn. I built this instrument several months ago and then haven't really touched it since, to my shame. They are 70mm long with a 25mm long head. That was easy. They are 70mm long, so I'm going to set that to 70. So that's 70 there. So we've got enough for 6 pegs there. I might even make 9 just to have a couple of spare ones in case something goes horribly wrong. So 210, because you need to account for the little mistakes you might make, because after all we are only human. So 210, that goes across there. I only need 6, it's only a 6-string instrument, but it's always good to have a couple of spare ones. You are probably going to need a bandsaw for this part. You could do it with a very fine pull saw, like a Japanese pull saw. You could rip down the grain by hand if you like. I'm not going to, because I am not the best with a pull saw ripping down grain. Start her up. I'll cross cut with this as well, just because I can. Probably worth saying at this point, this is not the only way to make tuning pegs. There are other ways of doing it. I'm sure there are many other ways of doing it. This is just the way that I do it. Now, I remember saying a second ago I had a 25mm head, or 25mm long head, on the tuning pegs that are currently on the instrument. So I'm going to go with that measurement again, because I know it worked for 4 of them, it's just 2 of them compressed. Line them up very roughly, as I've done, or you can line them up really tidily if you want, by using your ruler. Get them all nicely in line as best you can, and then very, very gently place your ruler down on top and mark across with your pencil. Get a good strong mark on there because you're really going to want to see that. So this is the pillar drill I personally use for making the tuning pegs. And the reason I use it is because it's got this, which I don't have for my other pillar drill. Got this vice jaw thing, which is currently bolted down to a specific place. The last time I used it, it was just the right place to have the tuning peg blanks put in that way, sort of fore and aft, I'm going to call it, forwards and backwards, fore and aft, to get them lined up square, and it's not in the right place now, so I'm going to have to move it. Get them to loosen off. Our peg blank, where's the pencil mark? There it be. Peg blank just underneath the cutter. I'm looking for a centre line left to right. Kind of doing this by eye in a way. I can see left to right, that's about centre. Fore and aft, that looks about right now. Bring the cutter down a little bit so I can put a witness mark onto the peg blank and see from the witness mark whether it's actually square or not. This is not really precision engineering. This is me doing my very best by eye. I could get a ruler out or a vernier if I wanted and get this absolutely perfect to 1/4 millimetre, but I'm not going to do that right now because this is not requiring that sort of level of precision. Alright, so that looks good. Fore and aft. Looks good left to right. I am going to bring it up just a little bit so that the end of the cutting head on this dowel cutter doesn't end up hitting this vice jaw. So the last thing I want is to completely knacker it. I'm trying to be as precise as I can with this. I know I said about you don't have to be too precise, but you want, ideally you do want your shank to be in the middle of your blank as much as you can possibly make it. Safety first. Start her up. You do end up with a little bit of this to pick off, but that looks actually pretty centered. So I know it's going to be good fore and aft. I just need to make sure it's going to be good left to right for all the rest of them. So I've got 8 pieces now, 8 blanks with a straight shank cut into them. Oh, that one's not very good. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to plane the head of the peg so that it's a nice amount of squareness. So the way I'm going to do this is just place it in my vise. Now I'm lucky that I've got this block plane. This is ideal for doing very tricky wavy grain and end grain because it's a very low cutting angle. So I'm just going to take a couple of passes, do 1 or 2 passes, and just to see if I've got the grain going the right way. It seems to be okay. As I said at the start of the video, this is actually rippled ash, so it's waving a bit. That looks okay. 1, 2, 3. Right, that looks good to me now. That's fairly square-ish. I'm just going to give it 1 more pass, maybe 2. Yeah, and then 1 on this side. You've got to creep up on this sort of thing. Don't attack it really enthusiastically and go too far, because if you go too far you can't go back. That's better. Okay, that's good. Okay, so the head of the peg is not entirely square to the shank, but that's alright. It can have a bit of movement there, a bit of wobble. There's a bit of room for it to wobble. They're not going to hit each other when the pegs are in the head of the instrument. I'd say that's just fine like that. You can see it's a fairly equal distance. Hopefully it's focusing, I can't really see. All around from the square head of the peg to the round shank. What I'm actually going to have to do now is undo one of these tuning pegs. And I'll do one of these, the thickest string. Which way is it going? I'll go that way. Well, that was easy. This is so I can set and measure how far through the tapering block I can put the new pegs, so that I get them to the right taper. This is going to be the hard part now, is getting these strings out. This next part is where the tapering block comes into it. Get it in your vise. A couple of mil of the square head poking out the top of the vise. I tend to use this, the very end one, to get more leverage when turning it down. And just start rotating around your tuning peg, and it'll start taking the shaving off. Don't want to go all the way to the bottom of the head with the tapering block. I want to leave a couple of mil there just to be certain that these pegs are not going to end up bottoming out on or against the head, what I really should have done is made a line. I'll just turn it back the other way to take it off so that the blade in it doesn't end up cutting into your peg. What I'm going to do now, bring the instrument to myself and have a look. Just place the peg in and see how far or how much tuning peg we've got sticking out the back. Now we've got a fair bit sticking out the back here, so I reckon we can go a little bit further. And back in the vise he goes. You don't need to put downward pressure on this thing either. You can just sort of let gravity do its work. I'm not going to go any further. Turn it backwards and pull it up. Let's see how that goes. Of course, this is trial and error. Sometimes it's the only way you know you're going to get it right, is by just trying. Right, now I've got about 5 or 6 mil at the back of the instrument. The head of the peg goes into the back of the head of the instrument. That's enough for me to be very confident. I probably need to take a measurement of how much material you've got sticking out of the front of the instrument, 12 mil. So now I'm going to drill a hole 6 mil from this edge. For comparison's sake, where have I put it? I'm going to have a look how far centre. Yeah, it's 5 mil there. Yeah, the centre of this hole, the string hole in this old peg is 5 mil from the tip. So that's what I'm going to go with this time again. 5 mil, and that gives it also space for the string where it goes through underneath the peg. Now I've got my mark pretty much centre there. You need it to be as centred as you can get it. I use a 2mm drill bit for doing this. We're drilling the string holes in the tuning pegs because the strings are very, very thin. So you need 2mm drill bit at the very most. Hold down the head of your peg as best you can. Very gently bring the drill bit to it. Make sure you're going nice and plumb and straight. Let the drill bit do the work. Try not to put too much downward pressure too soon. You can just make the peg tilt then, and then you end up with a squiff hole. It's best to have this hole as nice and plumb as you can get it. Let's go all the way through now. There we go. See that hole for the string to go through? 2 mil, that's all you need. It's very small. Be very gentle with the 2 mil drill bit. They do break really easily. So I've just squared off the head of this peg, so what I'm going to do now is just get a little bit of sandpaper wherever I've put it all. It's a little bit of sandpaper, a little chamfer on every corner, and there we go. We have a tuning peg ready to go. I'm happy with that, and I've only got to do it another 6 times. Just going to have another look now. Going to offer it back up to the instrument, give it a little wiggle and a push. Try and, yep, that's not going to go any further than I want it to. That's really good. The diameter of the very bottom of the shank, or the butt of the shank, or the heel of the shank if you will, is actually bigger than the hole it's going into, so it can't go any further. So I've got all 7 pegs now done, ready to be fitted into the instrument. I know it's a 6 string, but I've got 1 spare. 2 of them, in fact I could actually do an 8th if I wanted to, because what I'm actually doing, although this one is not perfectly centred with the round shank to the squareness of the head, I'm planing them down so that the size of the head is very close to the actual size of the shank, the butt of the shank at the very bottom where it's 8 mil. So I'm planing that down to be very close to that. I know I said at the beginning of the video I need to make them a little bit wider, but I'm worried if I have them any bigger than this, it might not actually be enough room for the tool to go between the pegs, because the pegs are very, very close together. They are very close together, as you can see. So I need space there for the tool to be able to get around the pegs, to be able to grip them and turn them. So I'm going to do another one just off camera now. I've got 7 done. I'm going to have an 8th just so I've got another 2 spare. It's only prudent, it only helps, just in case one breaks or another one fails at some point, because they can still shatter and twist themselves apart even if they are quarter sawn. It does happen. Thank you for watching. I hope this has been informative and fun in some way, and I hope it might encourage you somewhere out there, whoever you are, to maybe make your own instrument. I fully believe in sharing of information like this. If it wasn't for people sharing information on how to build these things, I never would have learned myself. Right, that'll do for this. In the next one, I will show you how to make the bridge and the tailpiece, and maybe put the strings on as well. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Oh, and my light's going to die. There's timing. Cheers.